Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. So today I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit and speculate a bit about which adventure pack will be the one to be made legendary or epic later this year. And I think we can pretty safely assume that with the level cap increase, whatever adventure pack is chosen will be made legendary and not epic. But in the producer's letter this past week, if you caught my video from several days ago, one of the big announcements of many big announcements in the producer's letter for 2022 is that a new classic adventure pack is going to be made epic, but they did not tell us which one. And on the wiki here, I went through and I've sorted all the adventure packs here by which ones are not yet epic, and there actually aren't too many. Once you start to look at the ones that aren't epic and the ones that are heroic only, there's really only about 17 to choose from. And once you go through ones that probably are not good choices, there really aren't that many potential choices here. So let's go in and start speculating, and I'll give you my opinions on which one I think they'll choose. All right, so before we get started on that, if you all could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know some of you aren't, maybe you're new here. Also, if you could give me a follow over on Twitch and on Twitter as well, I'd appreciate that if you consider that. You can find links to all that stuff below in the description. All right, let's start with the adventure packs here, and let's start talking about the topic itself. So the first thing to, I guess, talk about first is free-to-play content. They've never taken a free-to-play only quest series and made it epic. And when you consider that they did say adventure packs is the term for packs that are sold in the store. So that would seem to exclude free-to-play content anyway. So as part of this discussion, I am excluding any free-to-play content because I think that historically they haven't picked it. I think their language in the letter shows that they're not going to pick it. So while they could pick something like Waterworks, for example, they haven't historically done that, and the language seems to say that they're not going to. So I don't think it's going to be any free-to-play content. So let's get started with the paid stuff. And as I said before, there are 17 packs in the game that are heroic only. So let's just go through. We'll go from the lowest level and up. So the first one, the Seal of Chanticore. It's a series of quests that are in the marketplace. It's sewer quests. Could they pick this one? Probably not, just because it's not a very epic adventure. You know, you're dealing with sewer quests, kobolds. It's just not something that lends itself to be a kind of in-game legendary experience. That's not to say they couldn't pick this. I think the selection of catacombs fairly recently to be made epic was something that caught me by surprise, and something that definitely was a pack I wasn't considering before. I didn't think they would pick catacombs because it's a lot of skeletons, a lot of low-level stuff, but I think they ended up picking it because it was something they could do quick and easy and fast. So the same could be true for Chanticore. If they want something that's just quick and easy, they could pick this. These are some short sewer quests, but unless they are just really stretching for time, I don't think they'll pick this. And even if they are stretching for time, I think there's some better options, as we'll talk about later, than Chanticore. So I think Chanticore, the likelihood of Chanticore being selected is very low. I think it's very unlikely. Okay, next, Tangleroot Gorge. So Tangleroot Gorge is a series of quests that you can get to from House P. And Tangleroot Gorge, I can almost assure you, will not be chosen. I think there is basically a 0% chance. Why? Because Tangleroot Gorge, for a few reasons actually, Tangleroot does not even have Reaper modes available. It's one of the very few adventure packs in the game. You can't actually play on Reaper, and the reason for that, as I understand it, you all correct me if I'm wrong, if there's a dev watching this, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand it, that is due to basically the way the pack works is you reuse the same map many times, and there can be technical issues with Reaper spawning on parts of the map that are not actually being used in the particular quest you're in. So because there's not even Reaper modes for Tangleroot, and because the pack itself its design, it's kind of questionable. I know a lot of people love Tangleroot because it's quick, fast XP, and there's some good loot there, like the Death Ward clicky, but from just a design perspective, you know, repeating a lot of quests on the same map, I just don't think it's that great for a choice for legendary content. Not just the technical difficulties, but the fact that you're just reusing the same map many times. It's just not quite the best legendary experience. I don't think they'll pick it, but technical reasons alone, they couldn't, presumably, unless they did a tons of rework to the pack to fix whatever technical issues there are with the Reaper spawning, they couldn't offer a Reaper version of the content. And even if they wanted to dive in and fix all the issues, you'd think at that point they would just create a new pack rather than redesign the whole map from Tangle Gorge. And if they're going to redesign the whole map to make it work like, to make it work on Reaper, just why at that point would they not just do a new adventure pack? So Tangle Gorge, I think, is pretty much 0% chance, and I would be shocked, absolutely shocked if they chose Tangle. Okay, next is Sharn Syndicate, so level 4 adventure pack. I think this is a very unlikely. The reason I don't think they'll choose Sharn Syndicate is because these are really short quests that just don't lend themselves to being good legendary adventures. Again, if they wanted to pick something quick, they could totally do Sharn Syndicate, and I think it's a possibility. For that reason, I think it's not like a zero possibility by any chance. It could happen, but I think they'll only choose Sharn Syndicate if they want something like ultra fast. I mean, there's no wilderness area here, tiny short quests. They could probably do it really quick, but because it's not the best in terms of like a legendary experience with just the length of the quests, I don't think they'll pick it. So let's move on. So Sharn Syndicate, unlikely, but some possibility, but I still think very unlikely. Okay, next let's talk about the Necropolis Quest. So Necro 1, 2, and 3. I think it's pretty safe to assume these will not be chosen. The Necropolis quests, some of the good XP and everything, but they're not that popular. A lot of them, like say like Necro 3, a lot of the quests here involve mechanics that are rather outdated from today's standards, requiring certain groupings, or I know sometimes you can solo these and get around these, but they're really group focused. A lot of the quests, say like the rat quest in Necro 3, where you got to move the rat around the maze, a lot of this stuff just isn't very popular. It's pretty cryptic by today's standards, a lot of the mechanics here, so I don't think they'll pick it. It's possible, but I just can't imagine with its popularity, from what I can tell among the player base, not being that great in terms just of people who like it from a design perspective. People run it because it's good XP, but from a design perspective, I don't think DDO fans are too big on the Necropolis 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely that any of those will be chosen. Okay, next, Sworddusk Isle. I think of all the ones I've mentioned so far, I think Sworddusk has the best chance of the ones I've mentioned. I still don't think it's one of the better choices. I personally really like this pack, but I don't think from a design standpoint and from a player reception standpoint, it's going to be one of the higher picks. Although we have seen them choose packs like Catacombs, like Three Barrel Cove in the past that a lot of people would kind of scratch their head at. From their choices at the time. I know Three Barrel Cove at the time when it was originally selected years ago, player base kind of scratched its head at that. But Sworddusk Isle could happen. I think these are okay quests, but we're still talking a lot of Memphis and ogres and stuff. It's maybe not the most of legendary content. Like it's not comparable in terms of like a legendary feel and challenge to say something like Devils of Shavrath would be, but it's okay. One thing with this pack though, to do it right, they would have to make the wilderness area legendary as well, which I don't know if they're willing to do that. That's just extra work on their part. Sworddusk Isle also isn't that popular among the player base. A lot of that is due to the longer runs to these quests. Although with mounts today, it isn't that far, especially if you know where you're going. It's really not that bad of a run, but it's one of the longer runs, I guess you could say, of adventure packs. But especially getting to like the last few quests there. But yeah, Sworddusk Isle, I think an okay chance. Some chance. There's probably better choices though, so I don't think it will happen. But it's not one of the more unlikely ones. Okay, let's move on to Thurnal. Thurnal, it's kind of I think Thurnal along with the next adventure pack, Restless Isles, are probably the two least liked adventure packs in the game, because Thurnal, for example, has been mocked forever for the coil NPC escorting mechanics that it has in it. And then Restless Isles, I mean, we all know how hard it is to get to these quests. It's really, really cryptic in terms of just getting to quests and flagging for stuff. So I don't think they'll touch either of those two adventure packs for that reason. Just not popular with players. Pretty cryptic stuff, especially with getting this quest at Restless Isles. Could they go in and fix stuff, or could they do a band-aid fix to say Restless Isles by just putting teleporters at the beginning? Sure, they could, but why choose these packs when there's better options? So let's continue on. So those two, Thurnal and Restless Isles, I feel are quite unlikely. Okay, next, move on. Attack on Stormreach. This one I think is is the most likely of the ones we've gone through so far. This and Sworddusk. Attack on Stormreach, really good quest, well liked by players, I think. Siegebreaker is a pretty cool quest with some interesting mechanics there. Blockade Buster is one of the, in terms of like stealth quests, probably the best stealth quest in the game, I would think. The ones that you can play like purely on stealth. Really well liked. So I think some really well liked quests here. And I think one thing Attack on Stormreach has going for it is that it has no wilderness area. So that would just, if they choose something without a wilderness area, I think that's a little bit more likely just because they could do it faster. They wouldn't feel like they would have to do the wilderness area. Granted, they could just skip doing the wilderness area entirely. It's not like, say, something like Red Fens only has a heroic only adventure area, even though it has epic quests. So they could choose something with a wilderness area and not do it. But I would say, why choose something with a wilderness area when you could just put something without and not even have to deal with it maybe looking a little lazy when players run through a wilderness area that hasn't been epicked to get to quests that have been. So yeah, Attack on Stormreach, I think decent chance. Probably of all the, I would say, you know what? Of all the packs I've named so far, I think that Attack on Stormreach has the best chance. Okay, so Harbinger of Madness. This one, again, it has some of the same things going for it as Attack on Stormreach in that it doesn't have a wilderness area. But these quests in this pack in particular isn't that popular from my experience among the player base. There's quests like Missing that are kind of annoying because it's a big map where you have to find certain ingredients. It does have some fights that I say are pretty legendary worthy, like In the Flesh. The end fight there has kind of interesting mechanics, a very challenging fight. I could see that being really difficult, like absurdly difficult on the Reaper 10, like legendary if they decide to do that. So I think that they would choose something like Attack on Stormreach over Harbinger just because I think Attack on Stormreach is liked more by players. So Harbinger, possible, more possible than things like Thurnal or Restless Isles or even Tangle, for sure, Tangle Root or Sharn Syndicate, but I don't think it's as likely as Attack on Stormreach, which I still think is the most likely. Okay, moving on, Disciples of Shadow. We don't have to talk about that one because that's part of the Shadowfell expansion. It's a part of the expansion that only has heroic, but they're not going to touch that because it's already part of the Shadowfell expansion. I don't think there's any chance they'll do that. Reavers Reach. Okay, Reavers Reach. I know I said in the last, if you watched my previous video on the producer's letter, I said in the video that Reavers Reach was the pick I would like to see. I think it would be really, really awesome. I think it fits super well. A lot of these quests are very legendary worthy, like Ender of the Kobold, very tough infight. Stealer of Souls, which was originally going to be a raid, but feels really epic. You know, fighting the giants, so cool. I mean, these quests are really, really good quests. It's a really nice immersive area being out there in the Reavers Refuge. I just think they even have a crafting system like the Dragon Touched armors they could bring back that would fit really well to Legendary. So Reavers Reach, I think, would be an excellent pick, and I think of all the ones I've mentioned so far, probably the best choice. Now, that really hinges on the developers. How much time do they want to put into this? And we've already seen this year, they have a lot on their plate with the expansion, with other adventure packs they're doing. There's a lot, new race, there's a lot going on. The level cap increase as well. So there's a lot going on. So I'm just wondering, are the developers willing to put in the extra work? Because Reavers Refuge does have 3 wilderness areas. Granted, they're small, but it still has 3 small wilderness areas. They would, for it to look good, they would want to do legendary versions of that. They could always not do that and just have you run through the heroic, but I don't think that would be as good of a look. Just it would look a little lazy on their part, but they could do it if they wanted to cut corners. Also, do they want to put in the time to revamp the Dragon Touched armor system and make a new version of that? Do they want to bother with revamping all that? That's another thing. So are they going to put in that extra effort? I don't know. It just depends how much time they have and what they're willing to do. But I think of objectively looking at this, I think this is the objectively best choice and best fit for legendary content of everything we've said so far. I think you could argue like Attack on Stormreach, but I think in terms of feel, in terms of quest design, with the challenging infights, I think this would really, really fit in game. And I know I'm biased because I like this pack a lot, but yeah, I think there's it's one of the better of all the adventure packs here. I think it's one of the most likely choices. I would say it's in the top 3 for sure, potential choices. Okay, now we get into Reign of Madness. And Reign of Madness has some quests that I think kind of pull it out of potential of being a choice here. So Reign of Madness has quests like Acute Delirium, which people don't like that quest. It's a really unpopular quest. It's basically an NPC escort quest. You got to escort the furniture and all that. I just think if they go with a Zoriat themed quest, or quest series, I think they would probably rather go for Harbinger instead. It could happen if they were to for some reason go for this one, but I just think there are probably better choices here, whichever way you splice it. So could happen, but not too likely, I wouldn't say. Okay, next we get into some of these heroic end of heroic adventure packs like Path of Inspiration, Dreaming Dark, and these, at least to me, it seems like these are not run hardly at all anymore. And I think for that reason, developers might be attracted to these packs just because they don't get much play, and bringing them up to legendary would make them feel, more. It would make them. It would feel a little fresher than, say, pulling something like, say, I don't know, Tangle Root up to legendary, or say, I don't know. Even Chanticore, or these quests that are more played, I think it would feel fresher if they brought Dreaming Dark or Path of Inspiration up, just because they aren't played very much anymore. So let's get into, I guess, Path of Inspiration. It would be a really good choice. It's got quests like I Dream of Jeets, really cool quest where you kind of go inside the rogue's mind. There, you've got Mind Sunder, which you collect discs throughout the pack to complete and get the I think it's an end chest. It's been forever since I've run Mind Sunder, but I believe it's you plug in the disc to get, I believe it's a extra end chest at the end fight. I think these are good quests. Again, it's been a while since I've run these, but from what I remember, they're good quests. So it could happen, especially if they want to go with something that would be a little bit lower effort, because again, these don't have a wilderness area and stuff that isn't run too often. So yeah, I think Path Inspiration, as well as Dreaming Dark, I would have to go and say as well, or one of the more likely ones. Okay, now let's get into the biggie, and I think this is the one that I think is objectively, if time wasn't an issue, I think this is objectively the best choice of all the packs, from in terms of just quest design and the kind of experience they could bring, and that's Devils of Shavrath. I think it would be such a great choice for them, just because Epic Todd, Epic Ring and Belt sets, that's really nostalgic for people back when level 20 was in game. I think it's quite the experience to go back and farm out new belt and ring sets, and to grind Legendary Tower of Despair, which was a raid run a lot back when cap was 20. It was part of the level 20 in game, along with raids like Heroic Shroud back in the day. And these quests, you're talking Devils, these are really difficult quests. I mean, back when cap was 20, these were really, really difficult, and Devils completely fits. Definitely is, unlike, say, quests with kobolds and ogres, we're talking quests with devils, and that completely fits in game. It feels legendary. So I think if time is not an issue, this is the best choice. And I think if time isn't an issue, this is what they'll choose. The downside of this is it would take a lot of time. There is a ton of rings and belt sets that they would have to make epic. I mean, there's so many rings that drop from that raid. They would really have to redo all that gear. Not to mention, there's a big wilderness area. To do it right, they would need to make a legendary version of that adventure area. The other thing going against Devils of Shavrath is what is it, 5 years ago now, something like that, they did the Archons, Trial of the Archons adventure pack, which does take place in Shavrath. So we did go back to Shavrath, I wouldn't say recently, but more recently than a lot of these other packs. So maybe they feel like they don't want to double dip there. But yeah, I think if just in terms of adding to the end game, giving us Epic Todd with epic belt and ring sets and all that would be the best addition, and it would definitely give us an epic, a very legendary worthy raid, and content that actually feels like it fits it in game, because it's going to be difficult content, and it could go right up there with, say, like Sharn and Feywild is the hardest content in the game, and I could very well see this being the hardest content in the game if they decide to actually give us an in-game legendary version of it. So I think if time is not an issue for them, this is what to go with. So I guess all in all, top three for me, in terms of my prediction, Devils of Shavrath is what they're going to choose if time's not an issue. If time's an issue, then I could very likely see them going with Reavers Reach, Path of Inspiration, or probably the next one I'd throw in there in kind of the second tier would be Attack on Stormreach. I think those are the most likely ones that we'll see of the. I think those four are the most likely. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think is most likely. And again, I wanted to make sure that you all know, I'm not talking about in this video what I want to see. I'm just saying what I think they would practically do. So it's a different question. I mean, if you ask me what packs do I personally want, that would be a completely different question, and my answer would be Sword Dusk and then probably Sword Dusk and Reavers Reach would be my picks if it's what I personally want. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. Let me know below what packs you think they'll choose. Would be interested in hearing your opinions. That'll be it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed. Have a good one. Take care.